All right, now we're going to start animating our little character and creating a walk cycle. This is my stage, and the first thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to bring on the walk cycle um, element from the library. And I'm going to clear out these two layers just so I can completely start new for you. And we'll call this walking, our walk background. Let me do B, C, G, D. Okay. And so into the walk background, I'm going to put the walk art. And I want to make this art as big as I can, but still see through to the stage. This art right now is a bitmap. It's just a ping file that I imported. So I need to modify this and convert it to a symbol. That will make it a symbol that can be modified quite a lot by Flash. So we'll call this, let's see, walk template. And that's a graphic symbol. There's different kinds of symbols that Flash can work with, and we'll talk about all of these separately over time. We're just going to make this a graphic symbol for right now. And as a graphic symbol, these are the properties of the symbol over here in this panel. I'm going to come to the color effect and select alpha, and I'm going to take the alpha down to about 23% or so. And then when I size this artwork up, I can see through it because I'm using alpha. So it's transparent, which is nice. I'll size it to about there. Okay, good. And that's good. Now, what I'm going to do is lock this this layer so that I don't change it or do anything else to it. And I'm going to create a new layer, and I'll call this, let's see, character art. And the character art will be this walking guy that I scanned in. This is a little guy that I drew just for the purpose of demonstration. So I'm going to size him. And actually, before I do very much else, I'm also going to make him a symbol so that I can see through him to the symbol below, which is the walking group. So I'll go Modify, Convert to Symbol, and he will be Walking Man Art. Again, I have the properties over here. I'll come down to alpha, make him 22. Actually, let's make him a little bit more. All right, so he is 69, and that's good. I'm going to take him to the highest position here, or actually the most normal position. And then I'm going to size him according to about what that should be. About like that. Perfect. All right, let's zoom in a little bit. Let's move him over here for the time being. All right, so what I have over here now are the different positions of the walk cycle. The contact position, where heel meets ground. The down position, where foot is flat, back foot is kind of tippy-toe touching the ground. This is called the passing position. This is where flat foot. This is a high position. As you can see, the head is actually going over this line up here. And we have a very straight leg, and then the back leg is bent, moving forward. And then we have the final position, the up position. Sometimes these are called different things, contact, recoil, passing, and high position. You'll also hear these called. What happens is with the walk cycle, what you're seeing here is all one leg making that one action. The walk cycle then repeats another 8 frames, I'm sorry, another 4 frames with the other leg in these positions. So what you end up with is an 8 frame walk cycle. And this is pretty effective. So anyhow, what we'll do is we'll have him, and what I'd like to do is I'm going to actually come back to my character art, and I'm going to position him over these areas so that I can kind of use him as a guide. So I can see here he is kind of perfectly sized right there. That's great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that. I'm going to copy that, and I will paste that in place so that it's right over him. And I'm going to move that over. And as you can see, I'm seeing below again, which is nice. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that yet. I'm just going to move this as I go along drawing. I think that'll actually be easier. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of end up with a little bit of a transparency problem. All right, so I'm going to go to this character art, and for right now, I'm going to lock that, although I will unlock that later. And I'm going to make the first position, which is contact. And I'll be drawing that first position with my brush. So I'll select the brush, and over here this allows me to select a brush size and a brush type. So I'm using a round brush, and then this lets me activate tilt and pressure sensitivity of the pen. Really important, you have object drawing mode or not. For this purpose, I'm not going to be using object drawing mode, and object drawing mode is really very useful in some instances. Right now, it's not very useful, so I would just keep that off, and I can explain more about that later. I've got my brush selected. I've got black. The only other thing that I want to do is zoom in so that I can see a little bit better, and now I'm going to start to draw, tracing my artwork. I really like starting with artwork. I think it really helps sort of ground my art a little bit. You certainly don't have to start with artwork, but personal preference, I really like to. I think it's very useful to do that. One thing that's really important is when you're drawing, as you can see, I've just missed, the pressure sensitivity has caused me to leave some openings there. So it's really important that when you are making these lines that they are absolutely closed, and I'll show you why later on when we come to fill those lines. If that line is not perfectly closed, these fills will not work. So that's very important. Go back to drawing. And I'll go back to black because I want to outline everything in black for right now. Let's go ahead and make the neck. And one of the things I'm looking at here is what's happening with the arms and the legs here. So I'm going to continue making my character, but I'm going to change the sort of the position of his arms and legs. So we'll go ahead, we'll make the shirt, and I'm going to start going a little bit faster than before, and then I will make sure that the back sleeve, or the sleeve on the right hand side, is kind of facing out. And I'll start to fill in the arm, fill out the arm. And I'm not going to be very particular right now with hands. I'm just kind of going to have it be a closed hand for right now. Actually, that's pretty short for an arm. Probably want to go a little bit longer there. So if we follow that concept of curving around, our arms need to end with fingertips down right around here. And so we can do something like that. All right, that's good enough for now. And you can always come in later and clean all of this up. For example, you can come in and you can get rid of, that overlapping lines, stuff like that that you don't need. Just get rid of. And then now the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that that front arm is extending out. Need to make sure that I'm getting in the elbow. And again, I'm not going to focus too much on hands at this point. I'm just going to do that. And the next thing is to make sure that these legs are doing what we want the legs to do. And so the most important thing that we want to make sure of is that this leg is extending strongly forward. And so that may even cause us a little bit to change what's happening in the shirt. But really, really, really important that we have a strong front leg. So again, if you do need to make that kind of a change with the shirt, that's completely fine. Because you have to imagine that underneath, you have to imagine that there's a pair of pants underneath here, right? All right, and then we want to make sure that we're making contact on the ground. And you can spend as much time. Let's do that. Something like that. All right. And then we can make sure, again, that, and if I ever want to actually see a little bit more, I can turn both of those off and get a little bit of a better idea of what's happening underneath there. So I may choose at this point to turn the character artwork off and then just work kind of solely here. So I can see that this leg is coming down and coming back. And most important thing happening here is that toe, and I'm kind of fudging over to the left a little bit, but that toe is heading right down on the same place. All right, that shoe's a little off, but that's okay. So let's go back now and let's make sure. Let's see, what are we going to do with hair? Let's stick the ear in. Let's do something like that. Do sideburns and hair, and there we go. All right. Again, not perfect, but it will do for now. And anytime you want to, you can come back in here. You can apply color. So because of the fact that that is not applying, that would tell me that there is something that's open in there. So we need to go with the brush and find out what is open. And sometimes that means that you have to go back and make sure that these lines are really closed. Very often they end up not being closed at like edges. So let's see if we can find out what the problem is there. Yeah, okay, now we're good. Same thing down here. Let's actually make that a little bit of a different color. Let's make that like a gray color. Okay. So if you ever run into something that doesn't fill like that, you know that something has happened and a line is not properly properly closed. And so that's just a matter of going in and finding out where your line is that needs to be closed. Okay, so you just kind of follow on like that. So the next thing that we would do is we would make another layer. So we'll set up a new layer, and for right now I'm going to lock that layer, and I'm actually going to hide that layer as well, and I do want to have my character back on here just for a second. I'm going to unlock that character, and I'm going to drag it over here, because what you'll notice is that the torso and the head don't shrink. So what has to happen here is that these legs need to come forward. So I'm going to move that guy into position. I think I will take his alpha down just a little bit so I can kind of see a little bit better what's happening back there. And okay, so let's say I want to be about right here. And then I'm going to hold the shift key down and move this to the right so I can see a little bit better. Good. All right, so now I'm working solely now. I'm going to lock that layer again, and now I'm going up to layer 12, which is a new layer, and this is the recoil position. Okay, now in recoil, we're going to be doing the same thing again. We are going to be grabbing the brush. We are going to be making sure that we've got, our brush settings all set, and then we're going to start drawing again. At this point, you could even turn the head position if you want to. I'm just going to kind of keep the head where it is. That's just fine. So I'm just redrawing. I'll go a little bit fast here so that we can get through this. And, it's really fun if you start animating and you really, frame to frame, start kind of thinking about what the facial expressions can be. For example, you could have him blinking every once in a while. You certainly wouldn't want to do that every third frame or anything, but you can really start having some fun with the animation. All right, let's just keep on going here. Now, in this case, he's kind of bending forward even more, so I want to use my art, but I want to adapt it to what's happening in the position. And then this time I want to make really sure that that leg is doing what it should be doing. So the biggest thing about that leg is that it is very, it's really sturdily supporting everything happening there. All right, and then you can see the back leg has to also go down. So you have to figure out where is that actually coming from, right? And I'm going really fast. My hope would be that you would take more of your time, and then if you see what's happening here we have the toe going forward. Here that toe is kind of acting a little bit different. It's actually kind of pointing out a little bit. So there is a difference in that position. Now let's take a look at what's happening up here. So now these arms are swinging out just a little bit further. And so before they were kind of closer to the body, now they're a little bit further out. And if you want to, you can even kind of use that idea of what is that skeleton looking like? Where are those joints that we looked at the beginning of the year? Same thing over here. And what we've got happening here is, again, those arms, and feel free to use those joints if that's what you need to do. That's completely fine. I actually find that pretty useful myself. So, you know, and again, just feel free to make those hands real rough right now, because we can always come back later and do those hands in a little bit better. Same thing with the hair too. You can leave the hair off right now, or you can go ahead and put that in. It's up to you. We would now, let's take a look at what we've got. We've got that. So I can see one problem that I have right now is that I've drawn the head too high here.